Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, Sacred Geography, and Shinrin Yoku, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Friday, April 28th, around 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 2023. A deadly volcano could erupt at any time in Colombia. We're talking about Nevado del Ruiz, but only a small fraction of locals have evacuated. We'll get to that story. But on to the big one. Multiple tornadoes reported in the south as new severe weather threatens Texas. Keep calm. It's boom time. We are approaching the annual peak of activity in Hail Alley, and well, it's hailing. Tennis ball size hail could fall in North Texas this Friday after baseball and grapefruit size hail fell just over the last few days. Now on to Florida with the live tornado updates, dangerous to life warnings as 60-mile-per-hour winds tipped to tear apart houses, and there was some extreme damage there. Tornadoes causing damage in the Panhandle. A tornado touched down in the Liberty County community of Hosford, and it was, well, devastating. The rural area is about 30 miles west of Tallahassee, and a man was even struck by lightning in Panama City. Let's take a look at some of the devastation here. Homes were ripped apart, clearly, and our prayers need to go out. Here you can see some of that devastation. Trees just sheared in half. It all happened around 4 p.m. Eastern as a line of severe weather moved through the Panhandle. This could be EF2. But certainly a lot of damage. And after several tornadoes were confirmed, more severe weather could impact central Florida today. So heads up there, full forecast coming in just a moment. We've got some landslides happening in California. A slow slip here dropped about 20 feet at the Casa Romantica Cultural Center in San Clemente. Let's take a look at some of the reporting.
A landslide in San Clemente, California forced rail service to shut down and some surrounding residents to evacuate. Now, earlier in the month, cracks started to appear in the terrace at the Casa Romantica Cultural Center. Workers were installing equipment to measure subtle ground movements, and that's when the earth below started to fall away. Now, the slope that's adjacent to the historic building dropped 20 feet, according to city officials. The center is now closed. 4 nearby homes were deemed unsafe and were also evacuated. Sliding debris forced the closure of both Amtrak and the commuter Metrolink train lines in the area. Parts of Southern California have picked up twice their average precipitation.
And as the snowmelt continues, things are going to continue to rise, and flooding events in the west are going to increase. In fact, evacuations are in place as the Chinle chapter experiences extreme flooding, and that's in the Navajo Nation. And this flooding is forcing Chinle residents to leave their homes as crews rebuild the berms in the Chinle Wash. There were some rescues happening there the other day. 2 guys tried to cross a wash here, and it didn't go so good. You can see their work truck was washed away, and they're now having to perform a maneuver there to save the gentleman. Hats off to those first responders there. That could have ended very poorly. So 2 men were rescued in Cave Creek after trying to cross a flooded road. And it's the snowfall on the Chusca Mountains this winter that has been a blessing for people in the drought-stricken Navajo Nation, but now that blessing has turned potentially deadly. With seasonal melting, it has created havoc with severe flooding in the community of Chinle, and this is just the beginning, folks. Just the beginning. Rapid lake levels are rising here. Lake Mead quickly to surpass the levels of back in 2020. As predicted, we said by June, and it's looking right on schedule, but a rapid rise, 5-foot rise in just a day. Same thing happening over at Lake Powell here. Look at this rapid rise in Lake Powell. Almost 10 feet of rise. No, that's 6 feet of rise there in a day. So good news for the parched lakes in the west. And now the full forecast. Severe thunderstorms in Texas, critical fire weather in the southwest, and heavy rain in the nation's capital. Scattered to severe thunderstorms are forecast to produce damaging hail and winds from late this afternoon through this evening for parts of north central Texas, the nexus of the Schmexes, to the middle and lower Rio Grande Valley. Dusty, gusty winds will promote critical fire weather today over parts of southern Arizona and New Mexico. Those watches and warnings in hot pink. Excessive rainfall may lead to flooding today over the national capital region. So, heads up, we've got flood warnings and watches out in the west, mostly in Nevada due to the snowpack there, and freeze warnings, as well as frost warnings in Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma, and North Texas. So heads up there for your sensitive plants. Here are the severe warnings and watches through Texas. They'll be moving east over the next few days and into the weekend. Here is that severe weather threat in East Texas. It's going to be blowing up overnight and moving east and redeveloping somewhere over Mississippi, Alabama, Saturday and Sunday. It should be a fun weekend for severe weather in the south. And look at this explosion here on Monday up in the northeast like a beast. So keep a close eye on that as the snow continues to fall. Here is Saturday and Sunday, Monday through the weekend. Heavy snow in Canada and Ontario. A little bit of snow popping off in the high elevations of the northeast perhaps on Tuesday. And Wednesday there, a system moving into the west, bringing snow to the high elevations of the Sierras. And the snow continues in the pattern in the west through mid-May. Hey. Seismic update. Big rocker in the 24-hour period, 6.6 in the Fijis. No tsunami warning or threat. No other quakes of note. Interesting quake here, 3.5 in Princeton, Canada. Could be related to perhaps volcanic activity and an uptick in the Pacific Northwest. Let's take a look there. We do have an uptick in Mount Rainier National Park. Underneath of Mount Rainier, 40 quakes in the last 30 days. Not the highest peak in the last few years, but still getting up there. Once we surpass 45 quakes in 30 days, we'll be in record territory. So there is a seismic swarm going on at Rainier. Pretty normal, just a little higher than background. As you can see, all the quakes there. Here is Mount Rainier and the quakes happening mostly north of the peak here. And a small field of quakes out here in the lowlands. Now back to the deadly volcano. Nevado del Ruiz could erupt within days or weeks in Colombia, but only a small fraction of locals have in fact evacuated. Hundreds of families in Colombia are facing a choice: abandon their homes and livelihoods, or face the devastation of a predicted volcanic eruption in the coming weeks. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano, one of Colombia's highest peaks, sits in a densely populated farming area and is infamous for claiming the lives of tens of thousands of people in the massive 1985 eruption. So, will we repeat another 1985 eruption? Perhaps. Now, that eruption back in 1985 was only registered at VEI 3, right here, but yet it took so many lives. Another VEI 3 as early as 2012, February 22nd, has occurred, and a VEI 2 eruption in 2014. So plenty of time to charge up. It's been about 8 years since the last eruption, and it seems like VEI 2 or 3 is pretty normal for Nevado del Ruiz. So we'll keep a close eye on that for you as the situation develops. Now, Nevado del Ruiz is not on the daily worldwide volcano news map, which is good news. We've got Fuego, Popo, Xivalush, Reventador, and Sabancaya all puffing and passing to normal heights. Xivalush to 14, Sabancaya to 26, Fuego to 16, and we do have a nice shot here of Nishoshima in Japan as the island grows, a massive new piece of land for Japan. Very deadly one, though. Strong degassing continues there. Now, space weather news update. Seems like activity on the sun is ramped up. Currently C7.1 range. Very few sunspots. I'll give you a close look at that. Few active regions have been growing, including active region 3288, and it is directly Earth-facing, so any activity would be coming right at us. The 3-day geomagnetic forecast, potentially getting to KP5 today. We've only reached KP4, and a quieting overall for the next several days. Good news. Now we can take a quick look at some of the flaring that's occurred over the last 48 hours, none of which is particularly harmful for Earth. Little glitch in the matrix I had to fix. Here we are at the 27th, and it'll reset at the 28th. Boom. So the 26th, we had a big coronal mass ejection blast off the backside there and several other big booms. As a new sunspot region turned into view, all was quiet on the sun, but overall, pretty active sun for Solar Max, just nothing facing Earth. Now, Discover Solar Winds showing telemetry, all pretty leveled out here. Interesting. We've been waiting for a coronal hole stream to kick this up. Nothing much in the telemetry, which is why all is quiet at KP4. Do have some uptick in activity that we'll keep a close eye on for you, and stay tuned for more updates from the channel. Now, days before dying, Japan's lunar lander snapped a glorious photo of Earth during a total solar eclipse and then disappeared. So, for God knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars, they got a single photograph of Earth. Unfortunately, Japan's Haikuto R lander probably crashed on the moon like a boom. Now, new study completes Arctic sea ice loss with extreme cold weather. It couples, my bad. More garbage science. It couples Arctic sea ice loss with extreme cold weather. So it's blaming the several extreme cold weather events in recent years on Arctic sea ice loss. The only problem is Arctic sea ice has been growing for a decade. I guess they didn't get the memo. Here, let me see if I can find the graph. The 2-week animation is gone. There we go. Here is Arctic sea ice extent, and we can see 2023 is at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year high. And it's been rapidly rising for the past 4 years. So loss of sea ice has nothing to do with extreme cold weather events. And maybe the growing sea ice does. Here you can see how rapidly in the last 4 years Arctic sea ice area has increased. And area is the second largest in a decade. So, who's telling the truth? The data or these climate alarmists that show a polar bear as if there's a problem with polar bears? Now, NASA just power hacked Voyager 2, and it's extended its life even longer. This baby's been operating for 45 years and is now past the heliopause and out in the middle of interstellar space. At 12 billion miles away from Earth, Voyager 2 is so far that it takes more than 22 hours for NASA's signals to reach the probe. Wow. And with its power gradually diminishing, mission planners thought they might have to shut down one of its 5 scientific instruments next year. But a newly implemented plan has resulted in a welcome delay. Recent adjustments in which the probe redirects tiny amounts of power meant for an onboard safety system means that all 5 instruments on board Voyager 2 can stay active until 2026. Let's just hope that there are no, let's just say, what did they turn off here? Onboard safety system. Let's hope there's no onboard safety issues, because then we'll lose Voyager forever. But good news, Voyager's going to be working for a couple more years. Now, you want to get your climate game up? Check out Professor Ian Plimmer on What Climate Crisis. This is a great watch. I think it's about an hour, and he talks even about the grand solar minimum, and it's worth your attention. So is Hooper Springs Park near Soda Springs, Idaho. And the reason is I was having an argument with someone online about carbonated natural springs. They said they didn't exist, when in fact there are hundreds of them worldwide. Naturally carbonated springs that you can go and have a sip of. The most famous of the area springs in Soda Springs is Hooper Springs. It's one of several natural formations in this area of Idaho that even immigrants consider to be one of the marvels of the Oregon Trail. Hooper Springs was noted for its picturesque scenery and its cold, naturally carbonated spring water. Immigrants added flavor to this water to create natural soda fountain spring water drinks. That sounds delicious. Today, the site is a city park where visitors can still sample the sparkling spring water. Wow! Go get some. And that's a boom to knowledge. Proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. We love each and every one of you. Please share this video as we are shadow banned and we need your help to grow the channel. Become a Patreon, support the work we do, and watch everything commercial free. Be safe. And that's a boom.